Today's lesson is on combining rational expressions with unlike denominators. Finding a common denominator. In order to find the common denominator, you have to look at the denominators and find out what are the factors that are common with both. And in the problems that we're going to see today, you're going to have trinomials and binomials in there. If any of those binomials or trinomials need to be factored, you need to factor them first in order to find out, are there any common factors between the two? So let's look at an example. Here we are only trying to find the common denominator. So for this first one here, I need to factor 4x squared minus 196. The common factor of 4x squared and 196 is 4. So I factor out of 4, I end up with x squared minus 49. And then I can factor the x squared minus 49 because that is a difference of two squares. So the denominator here is 4 times x minus 7, x plus 7. This denominator over here, this one I need to multiply, see what I multiply to get negative 56, but add them together gives you positive 1. So I know that 8 times 7 gives me 56, and the difference between 8 and 7 is 1. I need a positive 1, so this is going to be a positive 8 and a minus 7. So I look at my factors. I have a factor of 4, x minus 7, x plus 7, x plus 8, x minus 7. So the least common denominator for this one, I have to use each factor the most amount of times once. So 4 is a factor. I have an x minus 7 in both of them, so I need to have x minus 7 as a common denominator. I also see an x plus 7 as a common denominator, and I also see x plus 8 as a common denominator. So this would be my least common denominator. You may do the next one yourself if you need to see another example. The second example that we're going to go through is now, once you find the least common denominator, add them together. So let's look at this example. I have 3x squared over x squared minus 9 plus x plus 2 over 4x minus 12. I need to find the common denominators. So first, I'm just going to rewrite each one, but factor the denominator. So I have 3x squared, and to factor out x squared minus 9, that is a difference of two squares. So that is square root of x squared is x, square root of 9 is 3. One's got to be positive, one's got to be negative. So I've rewritten that one. The other one, I can factor out a 4 in the denominator. That leaves you with x minus 3. And on the top, you got x plus 2. So now we can determine what our greatest or least common denominator would be. So I look at my common denominators. I see that I have an x minus 3 and an x minus 3. So that has to be in my denominator, so x minus 3. I also notice I have an x plus 3. That also has to be in my denominator. And then I see I have a 4 here. So that also needs to be in my denominator. So this would be my least common denominator for x minus 3, x plus 3. So now I need to find, what do I need to multiply this denominator by to get 4 times x minus 3 times x plus 3. The only thing that's missing is a 4. So if I multiply the denominator by 4, I multiply the numerator by 4. So that gives me 4 times 3 is 12, x squared and then I'm adding, and over here, I'm missing an x plus 3. So I need to multiply the numerator by x plus 3. And so if I FOIL this, I have x times x, that's your x squared. 2x, or 2 times x is 2x. X times 3 is 3x, so 2x plus 3x is 5x. And then I have 2 times 3 gives me 6. And from this point, all I need to do is add like terms in the numerator. So I have 12x squared plus x squared, that's 13x squared. Then I have plus 5x, and I got plus 6. This is all over 4 times x minus 3 times x plus 3. So this would be our answer. If you need to try another one yourself, you can work on this. The third kind of example, using equivalent fractions to subtract unlike denominators. So we're going to do the same thing, the only difference is it's subtraction. So let's look at an example here. I have 2x over 4x plus 16 minus 3x minus 4 over x squared minus 16. So if I rewrite this with common denominators, or with finding the common denominator, I factor the denominators. So I can factor a 4 out in the first one, so I have x plus 4 left over. That's all over 2x. Now I'm subtracting over here. The second one, that's a difference of 2 squares, x squared minus 16. So that is x plus 4, x minus 4, and that's all over 3x minus 4. Now to find my least common denominator, I look at what I have. I find out what's in common. Well, I have an x plus 4 here and an x plus 4 here, so I need to put that in my common denominator, so x plus 4. I also have an x minus 4, so that's going to go in my least common denominator. And then I also see a 4 here. So that also needs to go in my least common denominator. So now we have my least common denominator. Now I have to look at each expression to figure out what do I need to multiply the denominator by to get our new least common denominator. So for this first one, I still need to multiply this side by an x minus 4. So if I multiply the numerator and denominator by x minus 4, now I have 2x times x, which is 2x squared. 2x times a negative 4 is a negative 8x. Over here, I have x plus 4 times x minus 4. All I'm missing is a times 4. So I multiply this whole thing by 4. 4 times 3x is 12x. 4 times a negative 4 is a negative 16. You notice I put this in parentheses because I have to subtract everything that's in that parentheses. Now if I rewrite my answer, or combine my terms, I have my 2x squared. Now I have negative 8x minus 12x, which is a negative 20x. And then I'm subtracting a negative 16, which is a positive 16. That's all over 4 times x plus 4 times x minus 4. Now if we look at what we have left here, you can see that in the denominator, or in the numerator, I can factor out a common factor out of all three terms. They all have a 2 in common. So if I factor a 2 out, that will leave me with x squared minus 10x plus 8. And in the denominator, I have 4 times parentheses x plus 4 times x minus 4. And you can see here that we can simplify this. I can divide a 2 here and get 1, divide a 2 here and get 2. So that leaves you with an answer of x squared minus 10x plus 8 all over x plus 4 times x minus 4 times 2. This would be your answer. If you want to try one yourself, this example 3C, you can pause the video and do that one yourself. And the fourth example here, adding and subtracting with unlike denominators. So we're going to do the same thing where you may need to add and subtract. So we have an example here of x minus 5 over 2x minus 6 and x minus 7 over 4x minus 12. We're going to do the same thing, factor our denominators, then find our common denominator. So first off, 2x minus 6. If I factor that one off, I can factor 2 out and it gives you x minus 3. That's all over x minus 5. And subtracting that from there, factor out a 4. That leaves you with x minus 3. I have x minus 7 on top. Now if we look at our denominators, we have an x minus 3 in both of them. So for our least common denominator, we know we have to have an x minus 3 in it. We have a 2 and a 4. The least common multiple of 2 and 4 is 4. So this is going to be our least common denominator. So if I rewrite this with that least common denominator, I have 4 times x minus 3. What do I need to multiply this first expression by to get 4 times x minus 3? Well, it has the x minus 3. What do I need to multiply 2 by to get 4? I multiply that by 2. Whatever I do in the denominator, I must do in the numerator. So now I have 2 times x, which is 2x. 2 times a negative 5 is negative 10. And then I'm going to be subtracting from here this denominator. This denominator is the same as my least common denominator. So I'm going to subtract an x minus 7. And remember, because I'm subtracting this whole parentheses, that changes all of the signs in the parentheses. So now if I rewrite it, I have 2x minus 1x, which is x, negative 10 minus a negative 7, which makes it negative 10 plus 7, which gives you a minus 3. So in the numerator, you have x minus 3. In the denominator, you have 4 times x minus 3. Now you should notice that there is something in common with our numerator and our denominator. They both have an x minus 3. So if I cancel that out, all I have left is 1 over 4. So 1/4 is your answer. If you need to try one yourself, here's another problem that you can work through. And there's a few more extra problems. And the last one we'll go through today is the application. It says a pilot's single-engine aircraft flies at 230 kph. If there is no wind, the pilot plans a round trip to a city that is 400 kilometers away. If there's a tailwind of W kilometers per hour, the time for the outbound flight is 400 over 230 plus W hours. The time for the return flight with a headwind of W kilometers per hour is 400 over 230 minus W hours. What is the total time for the round trip? So I have to take the trip there, which is 400 over 230 plus W, and I got to add it to the trip back, which is 400 over 230 minus W. Now, there is nothing in common with the two denominators. So both of them, this and this, has to be in our denominator. So now I have everything is over 230 minus W, 230 plus W. So the first parts, I already have my 230 plus W. So I need to multiply this side by 230 minus W, which will give you 400 times 230. That would be 92,000 minus 400W. And the other parts, this has a 230 minus W. I need to multiply this by 230 plus W. So 400 times 230, that will also give you a positive 92,000. And then I'm adding 400W. Now I just need to combine like terms. So right now, 92,000 plus 92,000 is 184,000. Negative 400W plus a positive 400W is 0. We're done with that. And then the denominator, I have 230 plus W times 230 minus W. That would be our answer for that problem. If you want to try one yourself, here's the last application. You would just factor the denominators, find common denominators, and add them together. Your assignment for next time would be lesson 95, these 10 problems.